We've had some
Right.
bad times with not pressing the record button.
Right. So this is episode 11 of Homie and the Dude.
We're here.
We're here
We
with
made
Josh
it.
Rundle. Josh, thanks for coming, man. Thanks for being on. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Yeah, we are too. I told Tom like a couple of weeks ago that I wanted to have you on after actually following your vlogging content a bit more because I saw you guys were traveling. You and your girlfriend were traveling for a little bit, and during that, I kind of picked up on your content and then backwatched some of the stuff, and then started keeping up with when you were posting. Tell us, dude. Like, obviously, you know, from what we know, you're a filmmaker, a climber. You know, what's the thing that's driving you at the moment? What are you chasing at the moment, man?
Cool. First of all, thanks for watching my videos. I appreciate it.
Always. Dude.
Yeah, at the moment, kind of, well, as of lockdown and everything's been going on, I've just been doing loads of climbing outside. So all the climbing gyms are closed, so no training is really, well, a little bit of training is happening at home, but mainly at the moment, I'm just trying to climb as hard as possible, as hard as I can outside on real rock, and also make more climbing videos because, like I said, you saw my traveling videos, but I'm trying to move into like more climbing vlogs the more I develop and things like that. So that's kind of what I'm doing at the moment.
So do you have a go-to, almost like an outside workout area that has some different stuff that you can work on consistently and it's close to your house and you can just get there and do some stuff, or do you have to go to places?
Well, when I'm training at home, I have like it's called a fingerboard, which is it's all like climbing holds drilled into the wall, basically, in like a wooden square thing. But then I also live really close to Cheddar Gorge, which is, I don't know, 20 minutes away from me. And there's so much climbing there, so I'm climbing there a lot. And then there's another place where my project is at the moment in Anstey's Cove, which is in Torquay, which is an hour and a half. So it's not too bad to either go for an evening or for a weekend.
Your project, you said?
Project, yeah. So I'm trying this climb called Tuppence, which is it's harder than anything else I've ever done. So it takes lots of days of work before I can climb it without falling off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me, dude, a little bit. I was going to go here maybe later, but it reminds me of like Alex Honnold preparing for that El Cap thing,
Yeah.
and just how many times he would go up it. You know, totally like
Yeah.
Harnessed in.
Yeah, and just like memorizing everything. And
Yeah, it's like that, but I'm gonna do it with a rope.
hopefully. but the point is though that you're preparing for certain areas of it so that you can get through stuff in a way that is new or maybe just a little bit more difficult than other stuff that you've ever done.
Yeah, it's like almost like rehearsing like a dance, which is really difficult. And yeah, if you get it wrong, then you fall off and it's over. So that's how I'd probably best describe it is that.
So like, obviously with each like way up, are you like, I don't know, like, again, I'm just wondering about your process for climbing. Do you like write down like each step, or are you like mentally memorizing? So you're like, oh cool, I need to do like a crimp here and like swing under here, or like do this kind of movement with my leg here. Are you writing that down, or is that just something you're memorizing in the moment?
I pretty much remember it, to be honest. Like when you first go up, obviously you don't really know what you're doing or where the holds are or how it works. Maybe I'll watch a video of someone else doing it. But after a while, after maybe like one session or two sessions, I can remember most of it. And that kind of doesn't ever go. Like I can probably remember 90% of all the moves on my project. So you kind of just then have this like internal log of all these moves you've done on things you've tried for a long time.
So is that like an industry term, like if you have a big climb coming up, is it called a project?
Yeah. So if you're trying something for multiple days, like it could be a project. You can have more than one. You could have 10 projects or something. It just means you're working on trying to send it.
Nice, dude. That's badass. So what is there a grade for this one that you're currently trying? Just I guess for people that know the grading system.
It's 8B, yeah.
Oh, 8. Jesus Christ. So it's a real difficult one. Is there any particular like moments that you're struggling with or anything like that?
there's one move that is the hardest. You kind of have like I'll try and mime it. You have like a hold like this, a side pull, and a really tiny crimp. And you have to jump to this pocket, which isn't very good, but it's good enough to hold. And my fingers aren't strong enough to hold the really bad crimp like everyone else does in control, so I have to jump.
Okay.
And, so that's the hardest move. But I fell off like in that section from the ground the other day, so it's going well. It's going well.
Yeah.
Nice, dude.
So
Yeah.
when you say your fingers aren't strong enough and you got a finger hold like board in the house,
Yeah.
how much can you like actually strengthen your fingers? I mean, because we've seen like people on YouTube that are doing these crazy. Who's the guy that's like legendary that does like the one finger like pull-ups and all this other like? I mean, there's
Maybe
probably a lot of
Magnus
guys.
Smith-Bow or something.
Maybe, yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
But is it like muscles where your fingers can actually get stronger and stronger and you can get to that point where you're doing insane stuff?
Pretty much, yeah. It's a little bit. I think it's a little bit. It's not like quite growing, just getting a bigger bicep or whatever. Like doing dumbbell curls. I think it's a bit more intricate, and you have to be a bit more careful because they're easier to injure. I think, or at least mine are. But yeah, pretty much. The more you train them, the stronger they get.
I think I read that as well somewhere. Like you can, if you overdo, is it your fingers? Maybe if you, there's just a chance to like strain or rip little like micro things in there. Like
Yeah.
it's not. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. Yeah. So like your fingers, you have like lots of. They're called pulleys. So you have 5, I think. I could be wrong, so don't quote me. But which like hold the tendon into the finger, and the worst finger injury that most people get is them snapping. But luckily, touch wood, that has not happened to me. So.
Do you know what that segues on? What has been your worst injury? What has been the worst one that you've had so far?
I had a really bad shoulder injury for, I feel like it was over 6 months, where I didn't climb for like 4 months of that.
Wow.
But that was because my shoulders are quite unstable, so the shoulder joint was moving too much, and then ligaments were getting caught and things. And I didn't really know what it was. It wasn't as serious as I thought it was, but it meant I didn't climb for like 4 months, so it wasn't as fun. But that was probably the worst one.
Can I share my one and only climb? Well, I think it might have been my one and only climbing day.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you guys had tried it.
All right, I'll do mine first, and you can do yours. So I was a basketball coach this is now going back about almost 10 years ago. And we put together a team building day. And my fitness instructor was a guy who was just an insane triathlete and just hyper trainer. And he had some contacts he was also in the military, some contacts in the military that got us to, I think we were in Dartmoor or Exmoor. Anyway, fast forward to we did a bunch of stuff. We did some abseiling, we hiked around, and we get to this wall that were we tied in? We had to be tied in, right? Yeah, so we had to be tied in. And so it's my team, right? And I'm at that point probably like 45, something like that years old, but I'm in okay shape, but not in great shape. So my team, they're like in their 20s, and they're just like, it must not have been like a really hard ball because they're not like completely like blasting it up to taking some time, but no one like didn't get up. And for whatever reason, I went last. And I just, as like everyone had gone up, I was starting to feel more and more pressure of like, I actually have to do this because this is a team building event. This is for us to, to bond together and everything. And I just put a lot of pressure on myself. So I started going up, how like you have to reach in certain places. So I got to a spot where I think like my hands were high and my right foot was pretty high. And the next move was to get my left foot like up in a way that it was, and then to like lift my whole body up. So I got my left foot up there, but the next thing I had to do was like lift my whole body up to the next thing. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I can't do this. I like literally cannot do this. I don't have the strength to do it, but I was looking around, I could feel the pressure. So I don't know how, I just like pushed myself up to do it. And as I did, pop went my hernia. Somehow I like got up to the top. I didn't know my hernia had popped. I just felt something like hurt. But I got to the top, finished the day and everything. And I don't know, like 3 weeks later, had a hernia surgery.
No.
So that's my one
That's
and
not.
only.
That's not your best. That's not the best first experience.
No, it's not. It's definitely not. For me, actually, Josh, like my intro to climbing was actually while we were at Shapwick together. So when
Yeah.
for people who don't know, me and Josh actually went to high school together many years ago, and our like I didn't even know what he was our geography teacher, but also
Mr.
was
Winslow.
yeah, he was the outdoor pursuits teacher. So he's just an absolute mental guy who was
Yeah.
absolutely amazing and just one of the few teachers that you really wanted to spend time with. And I think it was year 10, I jumped on board with climbing, like his whole outdoor thing. So we did climbing, sailing, and caving. And during the climbing, it was beautiful, man. Like we climbed at the church in Bristol, and they've got some great walls there. It was nice to actually learn like how the whole like knot tying process worked, making sure you're doing safety checks. Also the teamwork between the belayer and the climber in terms of communication and things like that, if you're doing it through like a standard procedure, you know. But honestly, the thing that I loved most out of all the climbing that I did was I really loved bouldering, because I felt like there was a bit less, I don't know, it's not that I'm not good with heights, I just feel my adrenaline isn't as raging when I'm doing bouldering, which means that I can focus a lot more and like do things cleaner. Where when I'd be climbing on a wall, my adrenaline would be so high that my focus wouldn't be where I want it to be. But yeah, so that was like my main intro. But actually, my last time I went climbing, I was in New Zealand, and I pulled up to a leisure center because we were in a camper van to have showers, and like we literally paid entry to use their pool, have showers, and like we found out that there was a rock gym like at the back, and we were like, oh, we'll do some bouldering while we're here as well. And I haven't done any rock climbing in maybe 4 years at this point. And I did bouldering for maybe an hour, came away with some of the worst blisters on my hands I could have ever asked for. And so that was my last experience. But yeah, I also love climbing and really appreciate the difficulty and the strength that you need in like parts of your body that you don't even realize usually, like your forearms. The pain in your forearms after your first session of climbing is so good.
It's funny how many people like can't open doors. I remember when I first started climbing, I couldn't open bottles, or if I want to eat a packet of crisps, it was just impossible for me to open the packet. I'd have to get other people to do it for me.
Just sacrificing sacrificing daily routine for just the pain.
Have you guys, so here's something that I'm remembering as well. Now this might not be technically bouldering, I don't even think it is. But it was basically a very like low boulder field that you didn't have to boulder over, like scramble over, but you could like run across. And if you ran just a little bit faster than than you probably wanted to, your feet would just find stuff like very like almost instinctually. Have you ever felt that, where you're just like going across something like a boulder type field and there's no rhyme or reason to the landing areas?
That's almost like more like parkour. I would say like in climbing, I imagine you'd probably do that with your like eyes. The only way you could feel things, and I guess maybe with your eyes closed, because otherwise you're kind of looking at it, it's right in front of you.
Yeah, maybe when if you're running down and it's raining or something from the mountain, but I do know what you mean. Yeah, and you're moving fast and you have to make quick decisions. Like
you don't even know how you're making them. You're just like your feet are just going in spots, and it's too fast for you to even think about, oh, I need to go there or there, because you're just going and your feet are finding places, and you get to the end of it and you're like, I could have fallen like 20 times. I don't know how that did.
Also, Josh, like obviously climbing is predominantly outdoor sport unless you're doing it in gyms. What, like, in terms of dealing with weather and whatnot, we're in England, for people who don't know, England sucks for weather. Like, how are you dealing with the rain? Do you like keep going? Is there a specific type of rock that's better in the rain, or like anything like that?
If it rains and the wall gets wet, then it's pretty much just go and train inside, really. Some walls like have little microclimates. Like there's a place called Brean Down near Weston, which you could be walking up to the wall and it'll be peeing down with rain, and as soon as you get under the wall, it'll be sunny and warm. But most, unless it's really steep, most walls do kind of just get wet and then you go train inside. Yeah, if it's raining, then it doesn't really happen. It's just too slippy.
Yeah, I was going to say as well, based off of the whole like rocks thing, like just geology wise, are you looking at like what rocks you want to climb? Like, is there some rocks that you're like, I just won't climb that because it's too dangerous? Like, I assume slate would probably be a not great one for climbing.
I mean, in North Wales actually, there's a lot of good slate climbing. It's just it's quite
Okay.
solid. Obviously, it depends where you go. If you're going to if you don't climb on loose rock, basically. Um, yeah. So I don't really like look at like, oh, limestone is great, or sandstone or granite. Obviously, they all have different like textures and features, which make them different and more interesting in some ways. But it's more just if the rock is loose, it won't really matter what type of rock it is. If it's loose, then I'm like, you either be really careful or don't climb on it because it's a bit too dangerous.
I guess that's what you're doing the practice runs, like you're doing on the project that you're working as well. So you can suss out what is stable, what is unstable, and you can work out whether the route you want to take is one that's going to be good enough, I guess, landscape wise, as well as also just climbing wise as well.
Yeah, so well, the route I'm trying, it's all like the bolts are drilled into the wall. So
Yeah.
there is just a direct line and there's only holes in that section. So you can't really you can't go outside it. And also all the rock is like super bomber and it's not gonna fall off or go anywhere. You know, you can normally tell if you knock on it and it sounds hollow, or you pull on it a bit and it feels loose, and you just don't hold it. And there's probably on easier routes there's another option. So you don't have to worry too much about that really. Maybe wear a helmet if you want to.
Yeah. Well, so with your project, I'm picturing like your workout routine. Is it kind of like preparing for a marathon? Like you have a date out there in the calendar that you're like building up to with your cardio and your strength and your finger strength and all of that, or is it just like you're just kind of going, and when you feel like you've got it, you're then going to wait for a clear day and you're going to do it?
So no, you don't really have a set date. I kind of just go and hope. It's yeah. So I'll just keep working it. So what I normally do is I try and do all the moves. So let's say there's 20 moves. I'll try and do all of them individually. And if I can do all of them, then I know I have a good chance of doing the route eventually. But then I'll try and link those moves into sections. So the route I'm trying, there's 3 sections. I've done the first section. I've done the second section. I just have to do the third section. And then once I've done kind of like how the route breaks up, then I'll probably do it in 2 halves, 2 like overlapping halves. And then once I've done it in 2 overlapping halves, I'll be like, okay, I'm ready to try it from the ground. I know all the moves. I know what I need to do. It's just a matter of time and, you know, maybe having the right conditions, if it's windy and cold enough or not in the sun, things like that. Because if it's in the sun, it's much harder. And all the holes are like slippy and you're sweating more and it just becomes a bit of a nightmare.
Yeah. So from today, what is your estimated time of finishing? Do you reckon you've got like a couple months left, or do you reckon you've got like a couple weeks? How is your confidence about this feeling?
I was going to say, that is a difficult question. So I reckon I could probably do it by maybe end of August, maybe end of September, so 2 months maybe. Depends how often I get down there or how many people want to go there, because not everyone's always wants to drive 2 hours to go climbing. So, but there's an easier version which I think I could probably do now, which is 80 plus. I think I could do that in next session, and then yeah. So honestly, it's very hard to tell. I reckon soon-ish, but maybe I'll hit some barrier I don't expect, like a mental barrier, and just fall off the same move over and over again. That has happened to me quite a lot, so it could be that.
So you said depends on how many people want to go down there. I'm picturing like the day. What is your preference? Do you like to have a lot of people with you? Do you like to have some people at the top? Do you like to have some people like climbing, somewhere near you, or how does that ideally play out for you?
So basically, just if anyone wants to belay. So normally, I'm lead climbing, so I bring the rope up with me, and there'll be someone belaying who's down below. And if I fall, so like I mentioned with the bolts up the wall. Let's say there's a bolt here, and I'm here, and I haven't clipped another bolt, and I'll fall past this bolt.
Yeah.
And then the belayer who's standing down below will catch me like that. But
so it's the one where you clip in as you're going up. You're looping in basically. That's what he means by lead climbing.
Yeah, so as long as there's a person who wants to belay and climb there too, really.
We've had some funny belaying stories.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
before I tell a funny beeline story, I was going to ask actually. Obviously, your girlfriend Mimi climbs a lot as well. Are
Yeah.
you? I assume that's probably from spending time with you. Do you guys? Is she like your go-to right hand like man for belaying and filming and like all that kind of stuff, or have you got like a list of people that you're like, I'll go through the list and then if I'm
Seems
feeling
random.
like those people aren't good, I'll ask Mimi.
No, well, Mimi's probably listening to this. So, normally I'll climb with Mimi most of the time, and then if she's not around, then I'll climb lots of other people, or we'll probably change it a few times. Like, depends who wants to go where. Like, if someone wants to go to Cheddar and I want to go to Anstey's, then we'll just go to wherever we both want to go separately. So, yeah, but there is a list as well that I like to go down to. Just
Yeah, keep it fresh as well. It's not always great if you guys are arguing and you're climbing, and she's like, I'm gonna let him drop just a little bit further today.
exactly.
Feel that like
Get that extra shock as you land. You're like, whoa. Do you know what? So yeah, a funny beeline story that I have that again with Mr. Windsor, we're just at the climbing wall, and he was again teaching us how to catch people, how to like brace yourself, how to do it properly, all this kind of stuff. Hints that you get from your climber as well that lead you to think that they're going to fall so you can prepare yourself. And he chose at the time, and I believe she was a good climber. I'm not entirely sure what her connection to this day was, but I'm not sure if there was a larger girl in your year who was like really lovely. I'm not sure what connection she had to climbing, but I remember his idea was that he was going to send this larger girl up the wall and that she was going to jump off and we were going to belay her. And I'm not sure if you remember me in high school. I was like 5'4" and skinny as hell. And she dropped and I slammed into the wall and went halfway up the wall and like met her like halfway up the wall and was like, oh shit.
Hi.
you guys are just like balancing.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a pendulum. Yeah.
Yeah, that happens quite a lot.
Yeah, I was gonna say I can imagine that kind of stuff. Also, when you guys are going, Tom was like talking about the day and like what you guys doing. Obviously, with bouldering, do you guys have like fold up pads that you're taking with you and
Yeah.
stuff like that?
Yeah, so bouldering, bring fold up pads and then place them down just so you land on them like you would in a bouldering wall. And then when you go outside, it's just ropes and carabiners and things like that.
I was gonna say, how big's the pack that you're carrying? Like plus obviously, let's include vlogging gear and all of that kind of stuff. How many bags are you taking with you?
So if I'm climbing on a rope, then there'll be a rope, probably 2 or 3 pairs of climbing shoes, because each climbing shoe for me anyway is better for different types of routes.
Mm-hmm.
Chalk and a harness and 20 quick draws, which are the carabiners, which you clip the rope into. And then vlogging stuff it's a big bag. And then vlogging stuff is like a big DSLR, drone, loads of batteries.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I'm doing vlogging stuff, it's a big bag, yeah.
Nice.
It's not so bad.
Fair. Yeah, okay. Do you know what's interesting, with the whole vlogging thing, me doing some filmmaking as well, I wanted to ask, what led you to like vlogging? Obviously, when you've got the spectrum of filmmaking, what led you to the vlogging route? What was that decision like, and why go down that one?
Well, it was when we finished college and I was working in a climbing wall and kind of bored and not really sure what I wanted to do. I know I didn't want to go to uni, and so I was like, oh, what should I do? And I just started watching, I never really watched YouTube before, so I started watching Casey Neistat. And I watched his videos, I was like, well, they can't be that hard to make, but they're so good, and they're really easy. They in my mind, for some reason, they seemed like it was easy to make what he was doing. Obviously, I found that it's not. I watched those. I was like, oh, maybe that'd be a fun thing to do. I have a friend who is kind of like he's a photographer, filmmaker, does all of that stuff. So I got in with him, and I thought vlogging will be the easiest way to learn about making videos. And I was like, I don't know what I want to do with my life, so let's just try something new. And just started making videos on my iPhone, and then liked it and started making videos bought a little camera, and then slowly upgrading my setup as I go. Yeah, it's just fun and different to do, basically.
Dude, I saw that cheeky little smile about upgrading your. there's that little.
Buying a new camera, so Like all these new cameras keep coming out, and there's always like these issues. I don't know what to do. There's so much money, and you never know. Like, oh, should I get this one or this one? Or that was a smile.
And not only that, but also you can't. I find with tech stuff, because obviously they're like it's got to be pristine in the box. Blah, blah, blah. You can't test it, so it's not like you can order like a nice camera and go, oh, I'll use it for a week, see how I feel about it, and then send it back if I don't like it. Like it doesn't really work like that.
Exactly,
what camera are you rocking at the moment?
So I have a 70D, Canon 70D, so
Nice.
super old Canon, but it works pretty well, and it's very robust. I've dropped it a lot, and it still works. So.
Nice.
I think that's the one we used to do our short films with.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
They're good, aren't they?
yeah,
For sure.
and durable as well. Yeah, it's a good camera, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
So I mean, obviously, me and Tom actually talked about this today. Obviously, you know, the Sony A7 III's has just come out. Have you like taken a look into that and like that kind of thing, or
That's
what are
probably
you
one
looking
of
at?
them.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Canon also brought out their new cameras, which is like I don't know if you guys saw it, the R5 and the R6, but they both overheat a lot from the sound of it, and just doesn't sound worth £2,000-3,000 or whatever they are to buy a camera which you can only record for half an hour with. So it's going to be the Sony so far. Yeah.
Nice.
Does the Sony have unlimited recording on it?
It does. Yeah, it does now. Unlimited record time. So
because previously it was I think just the GH5 that had unlimited, because the Sony used to lock down as well. You know, that's what we have. We have the Lumix GH5, and that has unlimited on it. Yeah.
So if you got a camera set up, is that what I'm watching on that?
Yeah.
Okay, very nice.
Yeah. Oh, dude, no. You say very nice, but getting it to that point was not very nice. Like that, working out how to make that camera do this was a good weekend of work for us, wasn't it?
And a little bit of tech that we had to purchase.
Yeah.
which my wife and Bodhi's mom just sort of rolls her eyes when we're like, okay, we need to get something else. It's not that expensive, but it's essential to make this work. So you need to get like the Elgato Cam Link to get a DSLR to work with any kind of virtual platform, basically.
Okay.
And so that it's a little, basically it looks like a little like USB dongle. And how much was that? I don't even know, like 150. Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
These things are never cheap, though, are they?
No,
Exactly. It's impossible. You buy the tiniest thing, and it's like, oh, that'll be £500, please. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's when you find out that, you know, like the best cameras on the market, you know, like Red Epic cameras, like these beautiful cameras.
Yeah.
Just to buy the body is like 50 grand, and then that comes with no lenses, no screen, no cables. Like it literally gives you, you can literally use that to put your coffee on, and that's 50 grand. Like if you don't have 50 and 5, then you're not getting a lens with it.
Yeah, that's true. But things are getting so much cheaper now. I mean, filmmaking's more, and vlogging, everything's more accessible to everyone. Like, I mean, of course it's a lot of money, but even the Sony, the new camera, which does everything you'd ever need, really, is £3,000, which is obviously a lot to spend, but it's also, you compare it to like, say, a Red or something, it's not so much. And then you buy a drone. My drone was, the new Mavic one is amazing, and it was 1,000 with all the bump, and I sold my old drone, so it wasn't so bad. But or you can just use your phone.
Yeah.
I think it's like the best thing.
Yeah, and do you know what's interesting? You know, so when I last went traveling with my girlfriend a couple months ago, I didn't take my camera, I didn't take a GoPro, like I didn't carry any tech with me because I was like, I've already got my laptop on me and I just don't want to bring anything else just for this journey. And also because we're going to, I guess, sketchier countries than I've been to in the past. So I was just like, I'm just going to be a little bit more prepared this time. But I took my fucking Samsung S8, which is like so old and so terrible at this point in time. But some of the footage I got and some of the photos are spectacular. Like, and like 3 of my backgrounds on like my computer and like stuff that I posted on Instagram, like 90% of that is taken on a tiny S8 phone. And like I've made skateboard videos with that. I've done like, and it's just a phone. Like now I've upgraded. I've got like the S10 or whatever. It's 1,000 times better. I reckon, again, I could probably go out with just my phone and it would be just as good. Don't get me wrong, this next time we go, I'm going to be taking my tech, but
Yeah.
it's definitely like, yeah, phones are starting to get comparable. The Huawei camera is gnarly good at this point as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah,
So
for
what would you
sure.
say?
Sorry, Karen.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like you say, phones are small. Like everyone's got one, and they're just getting better and better. Like the new iPhone's cameras are just amazing. Red have come out with a phone. I don't know how good the camera is, but it should be pretty good.
Red
And-
came out with a phone.
Yeah, they have. Well, I think they're partnered with someone else, but they've got a kind of red camera in it, and that's kind of like the best thing about filmmaking now and making videos is that anyone can do it. You can just download an editing app or iMovie or whatever, and away you go. That's what I did.
Yeah.
That's what I was just going to ask you guys. So if you were to compare, let's say the latest phone, let's say it's like the Huawei, whatever, or the Samsung Galaxy, what is it, the 11 now or something like that, versus, versus the Sony that's just come out. Like, is the Sony like twice as good or slightly better, or what would you say? I mean, it definitely has some characteristics, like you can film unlimited footage, but like,
I mean, things like low light and things like that are just such a big part of why
Yeah.
that camera is nuts. Like, phones suck at low light stuff and even the GH5 that we have, like, I could take a beautiful sky like time lapse in like somewhere where it's a clear night and we would get a spectacular photo versus doing that on my phone is terrible. Like, it just doesn't. What were you
Yeah,
gonna say, Josh?
I'd say there's I'd say like the new Sony A7S probably doesn't even compare to a phone. Phone's obviously more. I think the best camera is, as I've heard loads of like other people say, is the best camera is the one that you have with you at the time, or the one that gets into wherever you're going. Like there's loads of places that I've been. Like when I went to Sri Lanka, they wouldn't let you film with a camera. Just take my phone out, and no one minds you filming with a phone, but they mind you filming with a camera. Even though there's no difference, it's just they prefer it. So whatever fits into your environment or whatever you have on you is always the best camera. I think is probably the best way to look at it.
do you have a gimbal set up?
That's a good
I
point.
do. I have a Ronin S or something, but the motor, the motor's broke, so I have to get it fixed. I haven't used it very much, and they broke like after 3 tries with it. So I've got to send it back. That's on my list of things to do.
Yeah. It's interesting because also, I love that idea, Josh, of whatever's there is what's best. And because, you're right, in some places, especially I found in the East, with temples and shrines and like sacred land and things like that, there's very few times that you are allowed, like we went to, in New Delhi, we went to Akshardham, which is like a Hindu temple. And it's like the biggest one in the world, but no phones, no cameras. You're not even allowed like your purses. Like you could literally bring water, like I think was all that was allowed in. And it's so like locked down. So I think you're totally right, man. Like whatever you can use in the moment is a badass kind of one. You're totally right. I love that philosophy. I've never heard that before, actually, by the way.
Okay, come on, please, I'm the only one that said it.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really good philosophy, and I think truly, it's whatever is available at the moment. Because also the other thing about cameras, don't get me wrong, I love DSLRs, but also in some cases to get the right photo, if you're not willing to do a lot of post editing, then you're flicking with settings on the camera for like a minute before you take the photo, and in some cases you're losing your photo in that time. So that's maybe one of the other downsides to cameras versus phones, is that phones again are just so immediate. Like GoPros are so immediate.
Yeah, straight there.
Yeah.
I think the best, well, I mean, I think also the thing going back to like whatever you have on you is the best thing for the job, is also just not getting too hung up on gear. I think it's probably like lots of people I've heard who said, oh, like I want to start a YouTube channel or want to start making videos. They're always like, oh, but I'll wait until I buy this camera or until I buy this, and you just don't need to wait. Like it's people make excuses by not having the gear, but you don't need the gear. I know I'm buying a camera, but I'm still making videos with my old ones, and you don't need to wait until you have this high-tech piece of kit to make your videos.
I agree agree with that, Josh. You know, you're totally right. And something that I've found is, and I'm sure you would agree with this, it comes down less to the production value, because you can always improve production value with time and learn as you go. But consistency is something that is like bulletproof. Like if you are consistent with your content, I mean, this is if your aim is to be someone who is in that realm of those people being a consistent blah blah blah. But if you are able to be consistent with the quality of your work, even if your tech is bad, if you're able to be consistent with the amount that you do, I think that makes a world of difference versus having really good tech.
Yeah, definitely.
I totally agree with that. And I think also to your point previous of, you know, because I've been the person that has said, I'm going to do this, but in order to do it, I need all this stuff to make it happen. That's probably a bad sign, right? You know, like if you really like just enjoy doing it, then you'll use ingenuity, you use your creativity, and you'll just do it. And even if it's low tech, like, I mean, one side of it is most people that are watching this are not going to be able to tell that or won't care that much that you're on a computer camera right now and we're on a GH5. Like they won't really like be like, oh wow, there's a difference there. I mean, their eye might check it out for a minute, you know, but then they're just watching the content, right? They're watching what we're saying and how, you know, how we're interacting and stuff. So that tech hurdle sometimes can really like freeze people in just being like, oh, you know, and it's almost an excuse to just not start because you're scared or whatever reason, instead of just jumping and doing it, you know?
Yeah, exactly. I'm just going to turn the light on because it's getting very dark, sorry.
Go for it.
No, go for it.
It's all good. Yeah, you know, and that's a really good point. I find, do you know what's interesting? Because I'm not sure if you've seen much of what I've been posting, Josh, or anything, or if Mimi's sharing anything, but I do a lot of skating, and a big problem with skateboarders and my friends who see me skating and see how far I've come, they don't realize that 14 years of hard work has got me to where I am skateboarding. Yeah. Like that's me going out for years and years and years and falling over and sucking ass and being terrible. And my friends who then get on a board for the first time and try an ollie and they can't do it for 5-6 months are like, oh, you know, this just isn't for me. I'm not going to do it. And I'm like, that's again, almost one of those things where you need to like continue pushing and continue like, again, the consistency, because it's only through consistency that you see that change and you see the difference.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's the same with climbing, I think, as well. There's lots of people, you'll go to the wall and you'll see people there and all the time who you've known maybe like as acquaintances for years, let's say, but you still have a conversation with them, and they'll, you've been training all year or whatever, and they kind of come and go, which is fine because that's whatever, each sport is different for everyone else. Some people just want to have it as a hobby. Some people want to climb as hard as possible, whatever is, how you work. But they're always like, oh, I wish I could, catch up to you or whatever. But it's like you say, it's always that not many people see kind of how much effort you're putting in, or like you say, it's years and years of effort and trying hard and failing and everything to then get to where you are, and there's still like a million miles to go as well.
Yeah, you're just at a spot in the journey, and I think, we talk about this a lot, is just enjoying those little spots along the way, right? Not thinking about like, oh, how awesome it will be to get to that, whatever that end picture is that you have of being really good at something. It's this whole process that if you're not enjoying this, then chances are you're not even going to get to that other spot, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And then if you do get there, who's to say that's going to be so much more enjoyable than the process that's been so much longer, right, to get to that place. So it's like, really enjoy this bit of it. This bit of the journey is the bit that's memorable, right? All the ups and downs, the sound like challenges that you have on a certain shoot day, or I mean, we've had battery issues with our camera. We've had, like, you name it, right? But those are things you can talk about. Like a year from now, be like, oh, well, hopefully our tech is like a little bit more solid. But you can talk about that. So there's a story there that's that's part of the journey.
Yeah. I think it's interesting, especially with. And do you know what, Josh? I'm not sure if you would agree, but I would consider climbing alongside skating in a niche sport that is something that has a smaller audience, a smaller like draw, but also that the community is really strong within that. And I think true, like, don't get me wrong, you always get the hipster douchebags that are like, oh man, like, oh, you're just not good enough. Look at this crimp, bro. Look at me. Like, you know, I'm sure you get that. Like, I'm sure you know those people. And I also know the skaters that are like, bro, but can you tray flip, bro? And you're like, whatever. But the beautiful thing about these smaller communities typically is if you're involved in that community, you know the hard work that is being put in. And the moment you see someone else doing hard work as well, you don't even have to say anything. It's like a mutual acknowledgement of like, oh, I see you. Like, I see what you're doing and I respect that. Like, even you might be better than me, you might be worse than me, you might be equal to me, but I respect you because you're working hard on it. Like that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. Like it doesn't. That's what I love about climbing. Like it doesn't matter if you're like the best in the world or not the best in the world. I've climbed with, you know how you mentioned the guy who's doing like crazy one finger pull-ups. If it was Magnus, I spent like a week climbing with him in Flatanger in Norway like a couple of years ago.
No
he's
way.
climbing 9B, and you know he's won World Cups, or maybe he didn't. Maybe he came second or third in World Cups. But he's really good. He's a professional climber, and I've climbed with him. And you know, I was climbing 8A or 8A plus at the time, so nothing super hard. And he's, you know, super nice. That's the best thing about climbing is there's no like, well, there doesn't seem to be anything like, oh, I'm one of the best in the world, and you're not, so I'm not going to talk to you or climb with you. It's kind of just like everyone hangs out together and supports each other, whether they're climbing 5+ or 9A. It's all the same.
So we actually did a little bit of research before you came on. We also saw that you spent time with what was her name? She was a world champion, bouldering world champion. You did that recently, didn't you?
Oh, Hannah, yeah, Hannah Slaney, yeah. She's a good friend of mine who I climb with all the time.
Nice. Okay, so there's something beautiful that I've seen in skating that I'm kind of hearing from you as well, where the pros integrate with the Joes, which is a really like nice thing as well, because again, there's teaching to be done, and also like still you get to see them progress and fail and go, you know what, I don't feel as bad about my shit watching, you know, a pro struggle with something, and that's just how it is, you know.
Yeah, exactly, definitely. I think that's a good thing, like say about niche sports, as skating and climbing are both niche sports at the moment. Is that kind of there isn't that level of crazy fame where maybe you know, football or whatever, you wouldn't see Ronaldo playing with in like a football pitch with loads of kids or whatever. So
unless he's getting paid.
Yeah, exactly, a lot.
yeah. It's not a £20 check that he's being handed either.
Yeah, exactly.
Or he's doing a commercial.
Yeah, he's doing a Pepsi commercial.
Yeah. The kids are actors.
Yeah, the kids are all actors, exactly.
They're being paid too.
They're being paid as well.
They're like, here, put on these rags and pretend you've never seen a footballer before.
But here's the thing, though. I think that's important because you guys probably have a sense of this, but I'm now 30+ years older than you guys. Is that right? Yeah, probably. Is this sort of example of how you get better at something is something that you can take. So with skating or rock climbing, and then you can put it here to whatever else you want to do. Like if you want to build a business, or you want to, you know, whatever it is, I want to build a house from scratch, or I want to, anything that's a long journey, it feels very similar. The ups and downs and the challenges and the setbacks and the learning and the little victories and the plateaus for months at a time, all that is very similar across just sort of the human experience of trying to achieve long-term goals. So it's really good that you guys and some people just cannot deal with failure, right? They're just like, as soon as there's a little bit of resistance of a challenge, they're like, nope, that's not for me. And they go on to the next thing. And what you start finding out is every single thing in the line, you're going to find resistance at some point along the way, right? So you got to get past it somehow. And then once you do, then you can use it for other things.
I definitely think like climbing has taught me that for sure. It's just like, you just have to keep trying. And, you know, if you like it and you give it everything, normally it works out all right. And it does teach you to fail as well. Like there's so many routes I have pulled on and not done, and you know, ups and downs of like not being motivated, but still pulling your ass out of bed and getting up to train or whatever. Definitely, and then you just apply that to everything else.
Yeah, you know, you're not wrong at all. And I was actually going to ask Josh, interestingly, obviously we've talked a little bit, you've mentioned some travel, you mentioned, buying filmmaking equipment, you've mentioned climbing, as much as all of this is stuff that we all do, it all costs money. I was going to say, based off of Tom's principle, for me, I found that I could apply that to my work. Like for me, outside of doing something that I love, working for money so that I can pay the man and suck the dude's dick, whatever, just be the bitch basically of society. I find that applying that failure principle is one of my best tools that I have in my tool chest to get through work and to like succeed in a work environment. For someone who is only 22, having the experience that I had, I've got some decent experience now within the work industry because of, I would say, down to that failure principle of being more prepared to learn and to fight and to like graft and work hard at it. What I was going to ask Josh is, what job, like, what are you doing outside of like, do you work at the moment? What's been the situation of your work?
So right now I work for Banana Fingers and Epic TV, which are both climbing companies. And right now I'm a copywriter for mainly Epic TV. And then, which is ironic, seeing as you know, we're both dyslexic and it took me 5 years to pass GCSE English. So hopefully they don't hear that. And yes, I'm doing that right now. And then we're trying to move into like making videos for Banana Fingers for Banana Fingers as my main role. But that's like slowly coming to fruition, but obviously it's all going up in the air and different personnel changes or not personnel changes, but decisions from everyone else as well. So as a bigger company, it kind of takes time to happen. But that's kind of the plan. That's where I want to go in that company, is to make videos for them full time.
How do you? So there's I guess two trains of thought. One is, if I can do my passion as my work, then that's the ultimate like thing. And there's another one, which is I want to separate my passion from my work because my work will ruin my passion.
Yeah.
What's your experience because it seems like you've taken sort of the first one. I'm kind of combining the two.
Yeah, so I did think that I wanted to work outside of climbing and thought that I love climbing. It's the thing that I love to do the most. There's nothing really I enjoy more than climbing. But, sorry, I've already lost my train of thought. Yeah, so I thought that, and I thought, okay, I started working for a company called Beeston Media, which is in the film company, is a film company, making like corporate films for NHS and Bristol Uni and things like that. I did that for a year, and then it wasn't really a conscious decision. I kind of just got pulled into the climbing world again. I got offered a job from Banana Fingers, and I was like, oh, it's, I needed a job at the time, so I thought I'll go do that and see what happens. And then now my life is just all climbing, really. It wasn't really a conscious decision because I just did decide that I would separate the two, so I would have my career and I would have climbing. So like you say, it doesn't become everything. But then through time, it all kind of just molded together. And now I'm still working for a climbing company and making videos. And I was also in my YouTube channel, I was like, I don't want to make climbing videos. I don't like filming climbing. I find it boring. I want to make kind of vlogs of just my life and me and traveling and things. But now I've also started making climbing videos. So it kind of just has all happened, but not really consciously. It just kind of all moved towards climbing. And now everything I do is in climbing. But I think that's a good thing now. I think I prefer that because at the end of the day, it makes sense. It's the thing I love to do the most. So why not try and earn some money doing it?
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. It's a good shout, and I think, dude, your whole point about separating work and then it's just kind of amalgamated together. It's interesting. I think for people who are truly passionate about something, that often seems to be the case. It often seems to be that when you really, really love something, you somehow find a way to do it, even in the worst circumstances, and it's interesting. You said that you didn't want to do climbing stuff and now you're filming climbing stuff. I gotta say, dude, your climbing content is great. I was recently watching the what's it called? The new series that you started on Wednesday. I can't even remember.
Wednesday, yeah.
Yes, it's Wednesday. Yeah, dude, like I like your climbing content. It's really interesting for me. Again, I'm as close to a novice as you could be, or maybe one step above novice, because I have actually done some climbing, I guess,
Yeah.
and understand like basic terms, I guess. But I still like love learning from what you're doing. And dude, your videos are super, as much as it sounds weird, instructional in a weird way. Like I'm learning about what you're doing and seeing and like almost taking it, even though I don't do much climbing these days. I still take it in, and for some reason I'm like, oh yeah, if I was climbing, I would have done that too. I'm like, I don't know why I'm thinking that, but that's exactly and it's interesting, dude, that's kind of how it ends up going with life. What I was going to say was based off of, your filming, you said you started being like, nah, I'm going to just do this travel and your life and this kind of stuff. Obviously you've done a lot of traveling. I know like from things that I've seen that you've been, to Greek islands, you've been to Kazakhstan, you've been to bloody Iceland, you've been to Sri Lanka. Give us like a map, give us like top 3 places, and then like maybe top 3 climbing places or something like that. Give us what you're loving about traveling.
Okay, we'll go top 3 non-climbing places, I think, first. Iceland for sure. Iceland was amazing. Have you guys ever been?
No.
I missed the opportunity. I chose not to go for 2 days. I could have gone for 2 days, but I missed the opportunity.
Okay. Well, it's probably not a bad thing, to be honest. It's probably better. You wouldn't see much in 2 days. It's pretty big. Well, it's not a big country, but if you want to see everything, you kind of want to drive around it. But Iceland is amazing. It's like stepping off like a spaceship into Mars or something. There's so many different bits of it. Each part is like another planet. And if you do ever get a chance, we drove the ring road, so like all the way around Iceland, and that's one of the best like non-climbing trips I've ever done, because it's just the most insane country.
Yeah.
If anyone's interested, there are videos on my YouTube channel.
Did you see The Secret Life of Walter Mitty, where he's like, is that like, that's what I'm picturing as part of Iceland, that badass scene where he's longboarding down that hill.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much like that, yeah. It is insane. In fact, I think that was one of the films that made me want to go there. Was that? Yeah, it's a good film.
Cinematography wise, for sure.
Oh, yeah, it's amazing. That's also a reason I wanted to go. Just to film it.
Yeah, for sure.
Iceland #1. Where have I been which wasn't climbing? I'm just going to turn around and look at my map.
Do you have pins in that map?
I do not. No, I should.
Oh, it's just a straight map. Okay.
There you go.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, you can see more. Kazakhstan was super interesting, but it's kind of a weird country, so I wouldn't say it's like the best. I used to live in Switzerland when I was a kid. And I'd say that's probably on the list because it's got mountains, it's got lakes, it's nice weather, snow. It's got everything basically. And then probably South Africa as well.
Oh, nice.
But I climbed there too, but it's just such a different type of country that I'd ever been to before. So like diverse, and there's so many different cultures there as well. I was only in like the non-climbing bit for 2 days or something, but the amount you could see just in 2 days was amazing. So those probably top 3 non-climbing, and then climbing would be again South Africa, Norway, sure, which I've been twice now, and a little island near Greece called Kalymnos.
Yeah,
I've been a couple of times. Yeah, that's another video on my YouTube channel if you want to check it out.
just slide in that plug in, just like,
that was actually a super cool trip, that video. I don't know if you saw it. Then we went out with mouse phone cases, and they kind of just wanted some climbers to go test their phone cases, and they came and filmed it. So they paid for everything, and I literally just got to go climbing for 3 days and throw iPhones off cliffs. It was great.
I saw that. So was that their tech, their iPhones that they were just wanting to test out, or were they? Yeah. Yeah,
with their cases. I have one of their cases here. They're like crazy strong. We just they were just like, go up here and drop the phone off. I was like, you sure you want me to do that? It's like a £1,000 phone. You just want me to throw it off? Oh yeah, okay. And yeah, none of them broke. It's like, on your head.
That's a good promo.
You're like, I'll send you the bill, shall I?
yeah, exactly. I'll invoice you for this.
Yeah, exactly.
What about you
that's-
guys though? What's Bodhi? Sounds like you've done loads of traveling. What would your top three be?
That's a great, yeah, it's a great question. You know, it's hard because, like you said, even within each country, there's so much difference. Like, for if you just move around, like, I would say if we as white people didn't get as much hassle as we do in India, I would say India would be very high up there for food, scenery, culture, learning experience, like all of that wrapped into one. Amazing, except for just being pestered for like money, which again, I understand the situation. I'm white. I probably have more money than you, and that's fair enough. If you need some money, then yeah, I get the situation. But India, absolutely breathtaking for anyone that wants to go and who is nervous. Don't be. Go with one other person at minimum, but damn, go to India. It's so amazing. I would say Sri Lanka is pretty high up there, but for me, I think number two would maybe be China. So I actually went to China just before the
Oh
coronavirus
wow,
down. Like I literally missed it by 2 months.
that's crazy.
But yeah, so China was a complete culture shock. I actually talked about this on last week's podcast of it just being so different from what I was expecting. It's like, it's so, I was expecting, you know, communism, and I was expecting people to be a lot more downtrodden. I was expecting infrastructure to be nil or a lot less than what it was. And they're way closer to Japan than they are India, would be like
Really?
my kind of comparison. Like, the people were amazing. Like the Chinese people were absolutely incredible, really lovely people. And yeah, it's an amazing country. Saw some beautiful things. The Great Wall. We went to like a really deserted part of the Great Wall, and there was literally one guy who was doing his morning wall hike. I guess one like little like 50-year-old Chinese dude, and no one else about. So those kinds of things were amazing.
On one of the like seven wonders or
Yeah,
whatever it is of the world.
yeah,
Just like
which is cool. But I would say Japan for me, consistently for someone who skateboards, loves urban areas, again, loving technology. I find Japanese as a dyslexic because it's a phonetical language. I can speak Japanese a lot better than I can speak any other Asian languages. And by speak Japanese, I mean I know enough phrases to get around like basically. But yeah, I love Japan. It was really, when I first went there the first time, it was a beautiful, beautiful thing. It made me very emotional for like a good few like days because it's just incredible. It's a very different place. It's like stepping into the fucking future, which is awesome.
That's super cool. I'd love to go to Japan.
Yeah.
That's on. Yeah, I just want to go ski there mainly. To be honest.
Oh my god. Yeah.
Looks amazing.
Do you know what I was gonna say? I remember you always being involved or like doing skiing in some sort of way, and obviously you said you grew up in Switzerland. So
Yeah.
did you like, has skiing been a thing all the way through as well, and do you still like do that when you get the chance?
Yeah, so I was super lucky to like so start off in France when I was 8 or so, and then move to Switzerland. So instead of playing rugby or football, which is something I was never really very good at or liked, I got to go skiing. So that like from the age of basically 8, I've been skiing. And yeah, so I try and go as often as I can, but equally then it's kind of I only have 25 days of holiday a year, so it's kind of like, do I go skiing for a week or do I go climbing? And most of the time, climbing wins.
Yeah.
But to be honest, it was like if I had stayed living in Switzerland or something, it would have been probably quite a difficult choice. Like, which one do I prefer more, like climbing or skiing? But climbing, I live in the UK now, so there's no skiing.
Have you tried snowboarding or are you straight skiing?
I did it for a day, yeah, or 2 days. I did it for 2 days, and I think almost made it down a red run in 2 days. So
Nice.
but mainly skiing, to be fair. Like it's kind of that thing especially when you're only going for a week and it's expensive. Do you stick with what you know and what you know you're good at and what you can like super enjoy and go down everything you want to go down, or do you kind of fall on your ass for a week?
Yeah. It's, you know, that's a very good point. I've never actually, because I'm a skier myself. Tom's a snowboarder. Ironically, being a skater, I ski because, again, born in Wyoming in America, where it's all backcountry skiing. I literally was put on skis as like literally from age of 1 to like 3. I pretty much ski like daily.
Yeah. Awesome.
So yeah, I have a very similar headspace to you. It's like I've never thought though when I've gone on holiday, yeah, I might take a snowboard up because I've always gone with the option of yeah, I definitely know that I will be able to like I'll pick up all the shit that I've like lost over the last year or two that I haven't skied, and I'll be able to get back on the skis and be straight back into it. Where snowboarding for some reason is just it's just a weird one. But Tom, you snowboard. So.
Yeah, so it's to your point. I think snowboarding has a easier learning curve to get up to like intermediate probably than skiing does. But I think to get really, really good at snowboarding, that gets steep as well. But skiing, I think skiing learning curve is a little bit steeper all the way. Certainly the beginning of it is. So it's a different, they're just different disciplines.
Do you know that's interesting? I've always thought skiing was easier than snowboarding for people that I've like at least people that I've talked to, they've always found skiing easier than snowboarding starting out.
Yeah,
like,
maybe.
But
yeah.
I also know that it just depends on like your center of gravity. It depends on whether you're good at coordinating your full body or separate limbs. You know, at the end of the day, skiing is coordinating 4 different limbs versus, you know, being strapped in and you're coordinating twisting and moving your whole upper trunk rather than, you know, your lower section, which is more like hips and knees kind of thing, you know.
I think you're right, actually. Maybe I got that wrong. Yeah, because I'm remembering starting snowboarding, and like just the first, just getting able to go down a hill was pretty brutal to start with. And I remember, you know, your heel side edge is catching and like sort of whipping you backwards in these sort of like whiplashy concussions that you had, and then front side is you're coming face first with that as well. So just navigating that. But once you have that, and it's a big once you have that, once you do, then you can kind of get down the hill. So yeah, maybe it was the other way around. That's snowboarding is a little bit steeper. Well, I have a question. Just sort of a little bit sort of tied into what you guys were saying with regard to traveling and tying in climbing with it. You talking about Japan having some really cool urban areas and stuff. I'm pretty fascinated, dude, with, so I'm scared of heights. So climbing already is like not, so what I didn't mention about my little story about blowing out my, my hernia was when we abseiled, we had to climb off, you know, like over the rail of a bridge and you're standing on a little platform and then you had to like turn around backwards and drop down. That's all terrifying for me. Like literally terrifying. So like bungee jumping, anything jumping out of a plane is the worst thing for me. So I guess the first thing is, are you okay with all like heights and anything that's like daredevil-y like that way? Because climbing is kind of like that. You get into certain positions where you're like, oh, if I fall here, or if I think about how high I am, I might lock up, I might freeze up, you know?
Yeah, I don't think I get scared of heights. So I'm gonna go with no, but sometimes you do think about it, like you say, if I'm in a dangerous situation or a more dangerous situation that I would like to be in, then you kind of have to think. You have that moment like, oh, it'd be really easy to freak out right now, but you also know that that's like a really bad thing to do, because if you do, like you say, you're going to lock up and it's going to become a lot worse. So you have to kind of just be like, okay, I see that I might freak out, but I'm just going to like push that to one side and focus on what I'm doing. But no, I don't really get scared of heights anymore. It kind of never really have been that scared of heights. When I was a kid, I always used to like climb trees or stand on the edge of cliffs and like never really bothered me. Sometimes I'll be scared of maybe if it's a really big fall that I'm looking at. Sometimes I'll be scared of that. But when you're trying to send a route, like with my project, when I'm trying to send that, if let's say there was a really big fall, it's all fine. But I'm never scared when I'm trying to do it, because that's the last thing I'm thinking about. I'm always thinking about just my performance and like doing each move. There's no room to think about anything else, which is, I think, what I like about climbing in itself, is that you have no time to think about anything else, because you just have to think about the climbing, especially when you're climbing at your limit, that like everything else kind of falls away. And
so with climbing, I guess as well, I'm not sure how much this factors into it, but especially if, for example, your belayer is your girlfriend, you trust that person with a lot more than just, you know, your weight, and you're like, you trust them with your life. Like at the end of the day, that's what a belayer is there for, is to stop any severe accidents. And I guess, you know, yeah, like a big part of climbing is you do trust the person that's on the other. Like at the end of the day, you don't rope up and you don't get harnessed up if you don't trust the person that's pulling the fucking rope on the other end.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah,
there's
that's
no
true.
way you would get roped up if you did. But I guess yeah, it's interesting, Josh. That yeah, I was gonna say I saw a photo of yours when you were in Sri Lanka. It's literally one of my favorite photos I think I've ever seen in my life. Actually,
Oh,
I
thanks.
fucking
Which
love
one
it.
is it?
It's the one of it's on the train tracks as they're wrapping around like this, and I think
Mm.
Mimi is walking away from you along the edge, and you're like laying on the tracks,
Oh
or
yeah.
and it is you've got this gorgeous drop off to the side, like it's just forest around you, and like out of nowhere there's just this urban like train track, and you guys are just chilling around the edge. I was like, God, that's beautiful! Like,
Oh, thanks. See, back to equipment. That was just on my phone.
amazing.
Yeah, nothing special or not.
All right, so
Cool.
my question about heights was a lead in to my real like. Actually, there's two parts to this. So the first
Okay.
part to this question has to do with we're talking about urban like scenes and everything. I see some of this crazy shit on YouTube that is, I guess, I don't even know if you wouldn't call it free solo, you call it urban soloing or something like that. But these like people that just climb buildings or buildings that are in construction and do crazy stuff, right? That they're off on the end of one piece of metal or something like that. Just to, I don't know if they're doing it just for views or if they really like, I don't know what it is, but some of them have fallen off. Many of them have fallen off. What are your thoughts on that? And that's going to lead to another question about free soloing here in a second. But what's your thoughts on that crazy shit?
Uh, I think it's a difficult one. I think it's okay as long as you don't like if you do fall off and you're in a city, if you land on someone else, and that's not okay. Because if you're putting anyone else at risk other than yourself, then I think it's like it's just ridiculous because it's not their fault that you're doing something that is inherently dangerous. So if you're putting someone else at risk, I don't think it's a good thing. But if you're not, then I'm kind of always the one who's tempted to. Maybe I won't always do it, but I'm always the one who wants to stand on the edge of these tall things and see what it's like, or always the one who wants to like, oh, I wonder if you could jump that, or maybe I won't do it because I think my risk assessment's got a little bit better as I'm older.
But there's a
I
part of
think,
you that's like, when you see that video, there's part of you that's like, yeah, that would be fucking cool. Like to like step out on that.
yeah, yeah, a little bit, but equally, when you see the like you say people walking on like a really thin beam and you're I don't know, 1,000, not 1,000 feet,
Yeah, yeah,
200
pretty much.
meters, yeah, pretty high off the deck. Then I don't think I would do it if it was really dangerous. I don't know. It's difficult. If I was in the moment, then maybe I would. But
There's
some
one.
of the
There's
stuff you
one.
see is crazy.
Well, I
Sorry,
was
Karen.
going to actually ask, are you like, have you done any sort of like urban climbing? Have you done any climbing within like on buildings or on any sort of like structures rather than rocks or within a gym?
Don't think I have. Maybe just messing about, but often a lot of like urban climbing is a lot easier than climbing on rock because like the way people build things is just like these big like holes sticking up everywhere, and like if you're climbing scaffolding or whatever, it's basically like that. Like I've climbed scaffolding or whatever, like
Yeah.
many people have, and it's just really easy. Like I'm not saying it's impossible for me to fall off, but like the likelihood is very small. So so uh so yeah, I've done a little bit, but not. I've never gone out and thought I'm gonna go do some urban climbing.
Yeah,
Do you know the point that you made about endangering someone else is really interesting.
yeah. I never thought of that.
No, like it's and do you know, it sounds awful to mention this, especially as an American. When 9/11 happened, that was something that never really got mentioned. Is that as much the people that were jumping from the building, like there was casualties on the ground from the people jumping from the building, and there's videos out there like mini documentaries about just those people, and it's really crazy that that kind of stuff can happen. And to me, it's I mean obviously not that sounded really out of context. 9/11, very crazy situation as of itself.
Yeah.
Conspiracies involved and not. Irregardless, it's crazy. But
Yeah.
just the whole thing of you need to be aware of what you are doing and how that's affecting people around you. Now, interestingly, as someone who is it's weird, Josh. I was agreeing with you all the way through saying that, and I'm still agreeing with you, but I'm lying to myself in that I don't do that, because as a skater, I don't respect people's property, because I often break into places. Like if I want to go skate a ledge that's in a specific place, like schools are really great for skateboarding, I will often break into schools and things like that. And I think doing that kind of stuff, and then also because I guess out in public when I'm skateboarding, the reaction that I get, for example, especially in Japan, was really negative towards me skateboarding. Really? Yeah, like really, really negative. That's when I start taking less regard for other people. When people start giving me shit, then I start almost like
pushing back,
but also being less cautious about, for example, like a good example, Josh, is not that it was hurting anyone else, but there was a Christian rock band at one of my usual skate spots. And they it was the weirdest thing, like a dude on, I say rock band, a dude was on bongos, another dude was playing a keyboard, and a girl was playing an acoustic guitar. And I was like, well, I don't want to make noise with my board, but I've come here to skate, so I'm going to go skate. And so again, I skated around and probably didn't help their gig that they set up, probably didn't assist that. So I guess your point of that, it makes me reflect on that and go, you know what, there's maybe moments where I should have turned around and be like, you know what, I'll come back when they're done and I'll go to a different spot. Because, I think your point is really right. You need to be wary of that. And again, I say I agree with you, but also I then don't follow that with my actions. So
I'm thinking.
I guess it's there's a balance as well, isn't there? Like if you fall off a skateboard and it hits someone in the ankle, it's going to hurt, but they're not going to die. But like when Tom, you mentioned like people walking on like really tall things above cities or stuff. If you do fall off, then there is a big likelihood that you could land on someone, especially if it's like, I don't know, Tokyo or whatever, which looks like it's not that I've been, but looks like it's filled with people. So like I think there's always a balance, like, or if you fall off a skateboard and hit someone, it's probably going to be all right. Or the same with climbing though, like if I'm climbing and someone's below me who's just walking, there is a likelihood that a rock's going to fall off. Equally, it's not all on me. Like if it happens, it does happen. It's just kind of like a freak thing. Then they shouldn't be walking there either.
Yeah.
One of the most harrowing ones that I saw. Oh, I think you remember. I think I showed it to you. Is this guy who's really, really good at urban climbing? Like, and there's like clips of him doing all kinds of different things. And he was
like the French guy.
Well, let me tell you what he did. You can tell me if he's the guy, because it might be him. But he would take it to a point where he's trying to do like almost acrobatic things up in the air. So he would he would do his I don't know, he'd do like handstands, and then he'd like hang, right? And then he'd like do like somersaults and just do this like on beams, right? And so on the day that he died, he's doing his thing, and he gets like off of a ledge and he starts doing pull-ups, right? He's just doing like pull-ups. He did like 5 or 6. And then you could tell he was like, okay, now it's time for me to get up. And he goes and he can't get all the way up. And you see him drop, and you know what he's thinking right there. And you see, this is a real person, and it's so hard to watch.
You can see the panic as well.
You can see the panic, and then he tries one more time, and it's even less. He's burned his arms out. There's nothing you can do at that point. And, and then you see the end, the drop. But it's such just like a really, really hard thing to watch, to see someone do that.
Yeah. Was that the same guy that you were talking about, Josh? Or
no, the guy I was talking about is still alive, so it's not him.
Okay.
I was gonna say, I've seen, and don't get me wrong, like I also, here's the thing is like, I was talking to Nikki, my girlfriend, about this recently in terms of just people who do adrenaline-based sports and people who are seeking that like thrill almost. And don't get me wrong, in some sports, the payoff to reward, the damage to reward is a lot different. Things like climbing and whatnot, the only thing that is being damaged is maybe a bit of physical weathering to a rock because you're climbing it and possibly you pull your own muscle. Versus things, that are like, mixed martial arts or things like that, or skateboarding, where you're chucking yourself around and falling over and hurting yourself. It's interesting that as, creatives and as people who are doing these sports, we will go, you know what, I'm going to push the boundary of what I can do, and we're going to like try and see what I can kind of do here. But it's like that's in some cases like where the danger comes from. But I think anyone who does those sports is trying to find something else.
Yeah.
Like if you are someone who's doing an adrenaline based sport, you're trying to find a feeling that you just don't get in your day-to-day life. And I think with those guys who, I watch guys, a group on YouTube called Store who do a lot of free running and parkour and stuff. And there's one of their clips where literally one dude jumps, misses like a step, and he literally falls. And what catches him is a bunch of electrical wires that happen to be there. And they happen to not break or like shock him to death or anything.
Mm.
But literally, if you look below him, it's 50 stories, like something ridiculous. And to me, it's like, there's a point where you have to start weighing up how much damage or risk there is versus that feeling that comes out at the end of it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Let me. So where I was going to go eventually with this is to free soloing, which is sort of the rock climbing equivalent of some of these daredevils, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess the first question I wanted to ask you about that, because the whole Alex Honnold thing was really fascinating to me. And I thought that, I don't know if you saw the film, but the way it was filmed. Yeah.
Did you? Yeah, I saw it. I presume you both saw it as well, yeah?
Yeah, it was just
amazing
how
film.
they did that. Yeah. So first thing is, is there some sort of class system in climbing where, some of the guys that are doing solo are looking at people that are doing, line in harness climbing differently? Or do you guys all like look at each other as like we're all just in the climbing world and we just appreciate the different disciplines? Like, is there some like politics in there or agendas in there or anything?
There is a few bits of politics, but not really with soloing. Not that many people, to be honest, do free solo. I mean, and if they do, it's all really easy things that, they're not going to fall off. There is some politics with sport climbing, which is when there's bolts drilled into the wall and then there's like a metal hanging which you clip in and go up and then carry on, which is mainly what I do. And with trad climbing, because trad climbing is when you go up but you put your own gear in. So it is a little bit more dangerous. Well, it is more dangerous because if the gear is not good and you fall out and maybe it pops off or pops out or whatever, and then you keep falling. So maybe some people talk about like bolting this line that's really dangerous and really good, but like not many people do it. So is there any point in doing it on trad, or maybe in the mountains where people want to bolt it to make it more accessible for everybody, but lots of people want to keep the ethics around. But that's kind of I would say that's more the only thing. Free soloing it never really comes up in conversation because not many people do it, especially to an extreme level, because obviously it's such a high stakes. Like only Alex Honnold and a few others really do it to that extreme. No, I don't think there's loads of people. It's probably a handful of people who take it to that level in the world.
So, in terms of like, obviously, politics, how are the politics within you? Do you find, you said you do a lot of like clipping yourself in and lead climbing. Is that your main thing? Is that the one that you love most? Do you prefer bouldering? Like is lead your main thing that you're like in love with?
It kind of changes, to be honest. This year was meant to be a bouldering year for me. I was meant to be going to South Africa again, but obviously Corona, great. Couldn't go, so that got cancelled. So then I was just like, well, there's more sport climbing and around where I live, so I'll go back to sport climbing. And I did do I've done some hard-ish boulders for me as well this year. So it kind of just changes, to be honest. When I'm training, I just boulder because it's easier. I don't have to wait for people. Like, it's just more time efficient. But honestly, like I like both the same. Probably if I had to pick one for the rest of my life, I'd choose sport climbing. Just because I like also the atmosphere you get when you're 40 meters up and you climb something really cool. You look down like, oh, like this is an amazing position, as well as just having climbed it, like being in this place where not many people can go or do go, and like a different way of looking at the world. Rather than bouldering, you kind of just climb something that's 5 meters and that's it. And if anyone wants to go to the top, then they can just walk around the back.
Yeah. That's super interesting. So like it's you use bouldering for training and stuff like that, which I mean, obviously, yeah, it makes sense. And just in terms of reps, like just in terms
Yeah.
of reps,
Yeah.
getting more reps in, it means you can be on the wall for longer, I assume.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, exactly.
so do you find again, like with obviously you and Mimi working together, is she more of a boulder, or does she enjoy like lead climbing like you do as well?
I think she prefers lead climbing. I
Okay.
think, but mainly what we do. Like say, just because that's where we live. So everything around here is mainly sport climbing. But I think she does. Yeah, you probably have to ask her to be honest.
Yeah, fair. Um, so that's super. Do you know what? Because I've watched. It's weird because I've tried to like invest some time in learning a bit more about climbing, and I've tried to watch some of the like professional competitions. And what I've like struggled with is finding like one that is like, I guess, a good one to watch. One that like, because I know there's so many different climbing competitions, like the speed ones where dudes are blitzing up
Yeah,
walls, where it looks like they're being towed by the
Yeah,
harness
those are
that's
cool.
pulling them.
yeah,
But then there's also bouldering ones, which is like, cool, you have to just do this route and get to two hands here. Once you get your two hands, you're clear, kind of thing. All the way through to massive climbs that are, then, done on rocks and things like that. So, is there one that you would recommend for people who are like getting into climbing? Is there like a professional competition that is a great one to like tune into and watch?
well, that's a good question. Probably there is a competition called Psycho Block. It's called Psycho Block, which is in I think California, and
Mhm.
Chris Sharma runs it, who is one of the best climbers in the world. I think he's kind of slowing down a bit because he's a bit older than the guys who are kind of pushing it now.
Mhm.
And that is where they climb. I think it's like a 30-foot, 50-foot wall or something, but there's a pool underneath them, so they fall into the water. That's
Nice.
that's the most entertaining one to watch for
Yeah.
sure because it's
Yeah.
got that like wow factor. But if you want to watch just like normal climbing, well, probably a bouldering World Cup, but they've changed the format, so it's actually kind of I think it's kind of boring to watch because they put one athlete on at a time, or well, like maybe one female, one male athlete, and then you have to watch like 10 of those athletes go try and climb the same boulder, which if you really want to invest, it's like 3 hours or something to watch. So if you want to invest a lot of time, I love climbing and I get bored of that. So I don't want to watch like 10 people climb the same boulder.
What do you think of the speed climbing thing? Where they're like, how fast they get up? Like in 10 seconds or something or less?
It's an interesting one, speed climbing, because especially now it's in the Olympics. I think
Oh wow.
it's well combined with sport climbing and bouldering. I've never tried it myself, but a lot of people kind of think it is like maybe a little bit of a gimmick. Um,
Okay. So in
because
what way?
Looks more of like a
because
Japanese game show than it does like a real life.
yeah,
Like there should be some ham dangling at the top that people are trying to wait for the
yeah.
family or something like that.
Yeah, rather than just the button. I think it's probably because you basically to train for speed climbing, you climb the same route. I'm sure you do weights and everything else, but that's just like go to the basic climbing. You train the same route. The route never changes. It's always the same, and you just try and climb it as fast as possible. And I imagine I've never tried it, but I imagine that's pretty boring after a couple of years. Um, so I think most of the climbing community or a lot of the climbing community, you go climbing outside and routes are always different, things are always changing, or you're doing boulders inside. And that's kind of about how hard you can climb, like what's the physical limit of you, rather than try and get up a 15-meter wall really quick. I'm sure it's fun, but I don't really know how I feel about it. I think sport climbing and bouldering and those sorts of things are probably more pure because also you do that outside, you replicate that on real rock as well. You don't really replicate speed climbing unless you're like trying to climb El Capitan in under 2 hours or whatever, like Alex Honnold and Roy Conrad did.
Yeah.
So yeah,
You know,
it's a weird
do,
one.
do, do you know what, Josh? I was going to ask because obviously, again, another weird similarity between just the niche sports where where you're using your body in a more physical way. You said, this pro climber is getting older now. He's starting to slow down, compared to some of the dudes who are really pushing it. Um, it's obviously the same with skating. Like don't get me wrong. For people who don't know, I'm 22. and I've been skating for 14 years, and I can tell you for a fact, I have to go and warm up. Like, people think skating is just like rock up and do some flip tricks. Like, I have to go and do stretches and like actually slowly warm into it now because of how like bad my knees are and like my shoulders and like shit that hurts at just 22. Like, I can't imagine what I'm going to be
How many
feeling.
bones have you broken skating?
Actually, I've only recently got my first break, so I actually broke my wrist in 3 places last year, actually, which was fucking painful as shit. You actually saw me break my wrist.
I did
as well.
see break your wrist, and I actually was like, you know what? Why don't you just sleep on it? Let's see how it is tomorrow. And you're like, I think I need to go to the hospital then. And then no, we were with a couple other people, and you were like, guys, listen, you guys go on to what we were going to plan on doing this afternoon. I think me and my dad are going to go to the hospital. As soon as they left, he said, I'm going to pass out. I'm going to pass out.
I literally was like, as soon as my like homies left that I'd been skating with, I turned to them like, yo, I'm about to pass out. This pain is real bad. I was like, you need to help me get to the hospital.
So we were just in College Green, you know, walking to BRI is like, whatever, 15 minutes, something like that. As we were walking to BRI, you had several episodes of, I think I'm passing out, I'm blacking out, like all the way.
Like literally like, oh, I'm getting fuzzy, Tom. I'm getting fuzzy. Help me. Yeah. It was
bad. Wow.
Yeah, it was a bad one because I made the mistake of, I did the original break and I felt it pop. And I was like, in my head, I thought I dislocated my wrist and then it had relocated.
Yeah.
And so what I did was I actually took my t-shirt off and wrapped it around my wrist and like made like a self-made splint and kept skating for like another hour. It fell on it another like 3 times basically.
Oh,
and yeah, it ended up just being really bad. And I broke, just 3 different bones. But I mean,
it healed well.
Yeah, as far as skating though, like I injure myself so frequently. Like I dislocated my thumb at the beginning of lockdown. I rolled my ankle literally like 2 months into lockdown and then couldn't skate. I could barely walk for like a month after that. So the injuries do stack up, and like after years, you're like I said, my shin has got so many chunks taken out of it at this point. Like I've got bruises and dents up and down both of my shins. So what's it like in climbing? What are you doing like now? Because like I said, for me, I put like CBD cream on all my joints. I'm like warming up and doing all that kind of stuff and cooling down. Like, and also I'm a vegetarian now as well. So I eat fucking as healthy as I can to try and keep my body going. What are you doing on your end for climbing?
So I do warm up, probably not as often, as much as I should, to be honest. I do lots of like press ups and antagonistic workouts. So like, because you're pulling all the time, it can bring like your shoulders forward, and because you're using all of these muscles, but maybe not enough like opposites. So I do lots of kind of press ups and TRX stuff and rings. And when my fingers like feeling bad or I'm training a lot, I'll probably ice them quite a lot. So at the end of every day, I'll put them in ice for 5 minutes. And I should stretch, but I don't. So that's it, to be honest. And then I think training kind of also keeps your body in like a better shape, like fingerboarding and stuff, keeps your fingers strong. So hopefully they're less likely to be injured. But that's pretty much it, to be honest. It's interesting you said you had to warm up skating. Like you said, people don't think that you would, and I don't know anything about skateboarding. But yeah, I wouldn't have thought you had to warm up for skateboarding either.
You mean like you're doing like you're progressing your different tricks as you go?
What I mean, so interestingly, you know, again, it's weird with skateboarding. It's such a weird thing because what everyone sees is someone landing a trick and that's all they get. There's so much more, and I'm sure again, like you get this with the climbing, you know, the repetitions and all this kind of stuff is with warming up. I do a static standard sports stretch warm up. So I do like ankles, calves, quads, hamstrings, hips, you know, twists, and then like arms, triceps, you know, fucking all this kind of shit. And then from that point, once I've done all my static stretching, then I will step on a board. And at that point I work from the very first trick I learned all the way through each trick that I've learned. And then by the 4th trick, I'm usually sweating and warm, and I'm like, I can then like more warmed up. But yeah, it's not, and do you know what the thing is? I realized this pretty much during lockdown. I've started now warming up because I've realized how bad my body is in shape. And for years though, I would do, and again, it's bad to say this because skating has a bad rep for this, but I would turn up to the skate session with the homies and I would jump straight on a board and I would be drinking and I would be smoking and it's never a situation where I was being healthy and taking it legitimately as a sport. I was like, this is my fun hangout time with my friends, and we like to party and do crazy stuff because we're skaters, and you know, that's the mentality. But as I've grown up, I'm like, no, this is like, if I want to do this till I'm 50, I need to like actually take care of myself.
And how are you find? I was going to ask how you finding vegetarianism and things like that. How long have you been doing it? Because I tried it for a bit as well.
Yeah. How long did you go veggie for?
It was like a year. Well, it wasn't like full veggie. I'd still like ate fish now and then. So
Yeah. Okay.
yeah, how you find it?
Actually, on my end, I became vegetarian on my first date with my current girlfriend, because basically she rocked up to our date really, really, really hungover. She'd gone out partying the night before with two of her girlfriends who one of them had like just been dumped and was needing some love or something along those lines. And she ended up going out and like partying really heavily with her girls. And so she rocked up and was like, I can't drink. She was like, this sunlight is too much. She was like, can we like bail basically? And I was like, yeah, totally. She was like, I was planning on cooking a vegan chili con carne tonight. And pre this date as well, context, I was the fussiest eater, like really like not super diverse with what I would eat, just like very consistent with potatoes and meat and like, just typical potatoes and meat, like typical American style. And I was like, first of all, I've said this on another podcast. The moment she said, do you want to come back to mine and try my vegan chili? There wasn't a way that I was going to be saying no, because she was as beautiful as she was. Like, there was no way I was turning down that option. So I went to the house and she cooked this amazing chili and it was awesome. And we both sat down and ate and it blew my mind. And I said to her, I was like, you know, how long have you been veggie for? And, you know, asked the same kind of question you had. And what led you to be veggie? And basically, I've always had that conversation with people and no one's presented me with a good enough argument for being vegetarian until her. And her argument for being vegetarian was quite a long conversation, but it came down to just being, if you have the choice to eat something that has caused harm to a living thing or not, what do you choose? Just for yourself morally. She's like, this is not a loaded question. She was like, just at the end, like, what would you choose morally? And honestly, from that moment on, I was like, I don't think I can ever eat meat again. I was like, the point you've made, I cannot argue with, because I would choose to eat something that hasn't harmed something. So at that point I was like, cool, I guess I'm a vegetarian. Yeah. And so now literally 2 years in 20 days or so, I've been vegetarian.
Almost pretty much vegan.
Yeah, pretty much vegan. I do like oat milk and things like that typically, but also if there's cheese on a pizza or a bit of milk in a cake, I'm not super bothered.
How do you feel physically? Like any better or any worse? Like any?
You know, it's a great question. I feel so much better. It's like it's interesting because when I ate meat, my digestion was definitely worse. I was definitely a lot more lethargic. I found like eating veggies has made me. I feel more awake. Would be like the weirdest way to describe it. Is I feel more. I guess nutriated. I guess I'm getting the vitamins that I just wasn't before. Like, it wasn't like I was a meat eater who also ate a lot of veg. I was a meat eater who ate basic veg like carrots, potatoes, lettuce. You know, I wouldn't even touch like broccoli and things like that back then. So now I get so many different types of nutrients and vitamins from all the foods that we eat. And we're pretty adventurous with our cooking in terms of, especially after being traveling, we're really like trying to do weird and creative things vegan, vegetarian wise. And I think I feel a lot better. It's the best I've felt physically in my entire life. But again, like I said, I'm not a good judgment on that because I was such a fucking fat shit for so many years, you know, with my eating habits. So it wasn't great in that way.
I feel like, Tracy and I have been veggie, maybe slightly less than you, but for me, I feel a little bit lighter, a little bit like
less stodgy.
Yeah, just lighter, but not like weight wise. like I probably am lighter weight wise, but just like lighter with my perception of moving this body around. You know, it just feels cleaner and lighter and in that way. And yeah, digestion wise, 100% like just better. So yeah, for us it works. It definitely works.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, I'm not gonna be like preaching here on top of the mount. If I was traveling and there was no veggie food and someone put like a juicy burger under my nose, who knows what might happen that night.
Yeah. And you know, it's a good point. Traveling and being vegetarian is so hard as well. Like even in countries where like India, Sri Lanka, where loads of people are Buddhist, it's still a really hard one to do. And I think, you know, for me, we definitely weren't vegan when we went traveling. We were, I was gonna say we're 100% veggie, but we weren't. I had a couple of pork bone broths in Japan with some ramen, but typically though, yeah, it's a harder one to do. Like I definitely ate a lot of eggs while we were traveling. Like I ate a lot of like scrambled eggs and fried eggs because it's what hostels were like serving, or it's what we could find for breakfast in the area and stuff. So I guess, and also just the truth is when you're in China and you're trying to read hieroglyphs that you don't understand, you know, it's not always easy to work out what is actually in that food that you're eating. And Google Translate on your phone only gets you so far until it starts being like, you know, Chuck Norris is eating here with you, and you're like, wait a second, wait, that's not a correct translation. But yeah, so when you were veggie, how did you find it now? Like, are you veggie now, or are you eating meat now? How are you finding?
I'm eating meat now. Yeah, I'm back to kind of eating meat, but I do it differently. So I kind of went veggie when I wasn't really that interested in like veganism or vegetarianism. That's the word. Before I started seeing Mimi again, and then she was vegan, and I was like, oh, I like trying new things and interested like what would happen. I didn't go full vegan. I just went vegetarian or pescatarian, if you like, for like a year. But then I just found I got injured all the time. So like then I had my shoulder issue, my fingers were rubbish. I kind of like everything. It didn't feel right. Maybe I was doing it wrong. It wasn't like eating the right foods. So I did that, and then I went to, and I was climbing badly, like really badly, and just performance was just like all downhill, kind of from the middle of that year, from all the injuries and everything else. And then I went to like a work dinner, and my boss was offering to buy. It was like a steakhouse, and he was like, "Oh, do you want steak?" And I was like, "Well, you know, they come out in this like metal, this slate slab. It's really hot, and they're all cooked. You know, you cook it yourself, like perfect temperature." Like, you know what? I'll have one, see what happens. And then the next day, I felt like amazing, the best I'd felt in like a year.
Really?
Energy-wise, I was climbing everything that I'd fallen off in like my previous sessions. I went and did easily, like absolutely, like, no fuss at all. And then I was like, okay, maybe I need to change this up. So now I just do meat like once a month, or when I feel like I really need it. Maybe if I feel like I'm going to get injured, like if I feel like my body's a bit tight or something, then I'll have some. And I kind of just only buy grass-fed, organic, like the expensive stuff, but the well-reared stuff, and like, you know, stuff which hasn't been pumped full of hormones and crap like that. So that's kind of how I do it now, and that just works for me. Like I'm not injured as much. I have more energy. So
Josh, like again, like as much as, you know, I'm vegetarian, and I see the moral argument of being, that's why I'm a vegetarian. I fucking love meat. Bacon is the best thing on this planet. Like people can be mad at me. If you're a vegetarian watching, you can be mad at me, but bacon's incredible. If you say it's not, you are lying to yourself. And you know, at the end of the day, for me, everyone's body is different as well. Like your hormones relate to your ecosystem going on within you, you know, whatever you need. And, you know, for some people that is, you know, I need this amount of water. Some people are like, oh, I need to make sure that I have these vitamins in the morning. If I take these vitamins, then I feel great and I'm great for the rest of the day. Or, you know, again, for example, like I know a lot of professional, especially within weightlifting, climbing, again, sports that require muscle strength and power, like again, MMA, mixed martial arts, a lot of people within those areas really value the meat, because at the end of the day, again, this is coming from a vegetarian, It provides protein. It re-heals muscles and heals micro tears when you're doing progressive overload training with your muscles and things like that. Like, it's some of the best at that in the world. Don't get me wrong. There's alternatives that definitely can give you the same amount. But the truth is, for instant, boom, get what you need protein wise, there's nothing better than meat.
Yeah, it's easiest as well. Like you can supplement what you're losing with a meat diet through a pretty sort of complex plant-based diet. But first of all, you have to know what that is, and then you have to be kind of a mini scientist, and then you have to prepare stuff that actually tastes good that you want to eat. And those are 2 steps beyond just going to some place and ordering something that has meat on it and it rocks up in front of you and you get the same ish ingredients. So I get it. I understand why people, would prefer to do that health wise. And to, I think to your point, yeah, your body needed it. Obviously your body needed it. Like there was something that in meat that your body was craving and you noticed it immediately.
Yeah. It did make like the biggest difference to me, like especially performance wise, which is kind of what I'm looking at. So when I'm going to try like my project, I had burgers yesterday, I had burgers today, all organic and whatever. But I know I'm going to be trying hard tomorrow because I'm going to go down and try it tomorrow. So then I have meat because I know that I'm going to have more. I'll have more power. I'll just be stronger. So I know I'll perform better if I've eaten meat the day before that I'm going to go climb. So I won't do that all the time. Like often I can climb perfectly fine without it, but it's just like knowing when I need it, and I can just feel like, I feel a bit like maybe I'll get injured or just a bit tired, and then I have it, and I will feel tired for the day that I have it, like because I think it does kind of slow down a bit, but then like maybe the day after, then I'm good to go.
Yeah. Will you eat meat the night before you decide to do your project, to complete your project? Completing your project.
Yeah, I'll probably have it, to be honest, most times that I'm gonna go try it, just to give myself the best shot. I don't think I'll do it tomorrow, but if there's a chance that I will, then I'd rather take that.
There's a weird question, obviously, sports, and like it happens in some sports and not other sports. Just to get like advantages, are people petting? Are people doing performance enhancing drugs in climbing? Are people like taking testosterone and shit like that and like get you through the climb, or like I don't know, like training at high altitude? I guess you are training. I was gonna say training at high altitude, but you're always fucking training at high altitude.
To be honest, that's a good question. Like, I don't know anyone that openly says they do. I don't think I know anyone that does, to be honest. And like, you can if you want, but then if you're not climbing, if you're not being paid for it and you're not climbing at like the top elite level, it's kind of a personal thing. Like if you want to take steroids and climb harder, and if you're okay with that, then it's up to you. But like I'm not okay with that because that's not my physical limit. Like that's kind of enhanced. So I don't know anyone that does it, and like they do drug testing in the competition. Yeah. I don't know how much of a thing it is really.
So yeah, like it's interesting. We talk about this often in terms of it takes away from the purity in some cases of that sport. There's freak athletes within those sports. Alex Honnold being one that we've named for climbing. There's people through many different sports. You look at the Usain Bolts, the Michael Jordans, the Tiger Woods, all these people that have been incredible athletes. If they had been performance using PEDs, it would delegitimize almost their crown of their body of work, I guess, would almost be, in my opinion, delegitimized a little bit. Yeah. Like I actually said to you today, like, so we're big fans of mixed martial arts, and there was a fighter who I love his like content now that he doesn't fight. I watch his YouTube videos, like I love him. And I found out today that in a couple of his big fights, I didn't know that he'd actually been brought up for testosterone usage. Oh. And that bums me out because I'm like, you criticize people who do that now in your YouTube videos, and yet you were someone who did that, man. Like how does that kind of add up? And that bums me out for sure.
I think the other thing is like, who really knows? Like,
yeah, for sure.
Right. So like,
drug tests do one thing, but there's always a different supplement or a minor molecule change that means that they can't find it.
And at that level, where people are so hyper competitive, and they're competing to be the very, very best in the world. Who knows, man? And you know, it's a shame because Tracy and I, my wife and I, were watching this guy that just broke like sub 10-second 100 meters, sub 20-second 200 meters, sub 44 or something 400 meter. Like did something that only one other person in history has done. And both of us, after we saw him like blowing through all these people, turned to each other and said, "Heads." And that sucks. Like that's a terrible like feeling to have, because you know, you wish that it wasn't, but you've seen it over and over again so many times that pop for Peds. And now it's like, okay, well, anyone that does anything exceptional, you immediately say, it's probably Peds.
And do you know what's interesting as well? Like, to bring up someone that we went to school with, Josh. Do you remember Josh Lammers?
Yes.
Yeah. So Josh Lammers, he held, I'm pretty sure he still holds the Shapwick 100-meter record.
He was fast.
Yeah, ridiculously fast kid, like long distance, short distance, give him any type of running, and this guy was incredible, right? In terms of like the whole petting and not, if you put someone with Peds against Josh, the beauty and the moment, like I remember I watched a sports day one year, like I was actually involved in the sports day, I didn't bail on it or pretend like I was sick or whatever, sports day. And I actually went and watched, and he ran the 100 meters, and I think somewhere between 11 and 10 seconds flat. And for a 16-year-old kid, that is fucking ridiculous. And if that had been a performance-enhanced situation, like, again, it ruins that, like, awesomeness. You're like, wow, that's
like Lance Armstrong or whatever.
Yeah, perfect example. Lance Armstrong is a perfect example of someone who completely ruined everything for himself.
And he ruined the whole trip for us.
Wait, what happened?
How old were you at the time? Probably 10?
No, it was maybe a couple years, because it was a couple years later, maybe 12, 13.
Yeah, so we had just moved to England, and Bodie and I, we were doing our own things, and we decided we were going to do this father-son road trip to kind of reconnect and just have a good, like, and it was through like a part of the summer. So we drove from the Southwest, basically from Taunton down to Dover, and then across, and then through France, and we're going to eventually make our way down to Spain. But the whole impetus of this trip was, and we called it like searching for Lance, because one of the stops along the way was in Morzine, which was a actual stop of the Tour de France. And we lined it up so we were going to be there during that stage of the Tour de France. And this was like the year before he was, you know, he popped for all of it, right? So he had like five in a row Tour de France's, and he was legendary. He was like, and you know, there was the yellow bracelets, and there was this whole like aura around Lance Armstrong. And so our whole like trip was around that. Ironically, we were like standing at the starting line, and we were like, "Where's Lance? We don't see him." And we didn't see him that morning. And then that night we went back to our little cabin or whatever, and we're watching TV, and we could actually see ourselves on the TV. And there was Lance Armstrong. Somehow he like with his bike went right past us. He was wearing a different colored jersey, which ironically I probably feel better about now. But yeah, so like, dude, little kids, adults, everyone was like on the Lance Armstrong train, right? It was a big thing.
Yeah, the Live Strong bands and everything. Do you remember the yellow Live Strong bands? And
Yeah. And then when it happened, it was just like he just had some sort of special, I don't know, like a couple months ago, like, and he was like, "I want to tell my story again." And my reaction to that was, dude, I don't care about your story anymore. Your story's over. Like, you ruined it. You ruined it for me. So
I think sorry, Karen.
No, that's yeah.
I think like I always thought when I heard that he had done like was taking performance enhancing drugs, I didn't think it was that bad, because I'd heard that everyone else was also taking them. But it wasn't so much the fact that he had taken them, it was more the fact that his attitude then towards everyone who accused him of it. Like, he ruined so many people's careers over like accusations of taking these drugs, which he was doing, and everyone else was taking it. And if everyone else is taking it, there's another conversation to have. Then it's all right, because you are still then all on the same playing field.
Yes.
But then to ruin people's careers and livelihoods and lives over it, then you kind of lose all respect for someone like that.
No, that's a fair point. And I think like if everyone in a competition is on it, then it's not who's the best athlete, it's which athlete has the best chemist. Right?
Yeah.
He's got the best Heisenberg.
Kind of,
That's
isn't
true,
it?
yeah.
Oh my god.
That's true.
brilliant. No, yeah.
Have you guys seen
phenomenal.
Icarus?
Yeah, dude, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've seen it or not. That was crazy. It's the Russian like drug scandal that basically banned Russia from all competitive international sports for I don't know years, and they're still struggling with it. Like they're still like on the verge of being banned for Olympics and World Championships every time it comes up.
Yeah, it's insane, isn't it? And the scale of it as well. To like basically every Russian athlete seemed to be doping, and then
It was
and
a
then
governmental conspiracy. Yeah.
yeah, and then the top scientist just happened to die of a heart attack.
Just happened.
It's,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah, it's
classic.
just
It's just the classic. I love. It's so funny. I love when governments put out that message of like, oh, he just happened. It's like the Epstein thing. It's like, oh, he just happened to kill himself in a prison where he had nothing to kill himself with. You're
Yeah,
like,
he choked himself to death.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. It's like, yeah, I'm not
Go
too
ahead and
sure.
try that.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah.
the lead doctor took too much of the peds and actually suicided.
yeah.
He suicided himself down a staircase.
What a tragedy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's
That's
definitely
really
one to watch if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. I'll
It's on
have to check that out for
It's
sure.
amazing, yeah. It's amazing.
Right. Dude, we've pretty much hit almost like the 2 hour mark. This has been
Awesome.
absolutely incredible, Josh. Thank you, dude, for doing this. I know you and me haven't spoken in a good few years.
No, it's
but,
amazing to do it. Thank you so much for having me.
for sure,
Keep in
dude. And not only that, dude, but in the coming months when COVID and all that kind of clears up a little bit more, we'll have to do some sort of double date and
let's
hang
do it.
out. Do some sort of thing where we hang out, or even do some sort of filming project together. That would also be dope at some point.
Yeah, let's do it. Definitely. I'm 100% down
Okay.
for that. We'll keep in touch.
Yeah,
Cool.
man. Very game. Also, if you need someone to film some climbing, I got some shit to film some climbing as well.
Cool. Okay, definitely. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Soon.
Dude.
Nice to meet you, man.
Nice to meet you, Tom.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Right,
guys, for having
guys.
me.
Josh, quickly before you go, dude, shoot out all your get your promotion, get your
Okay, here we go.
all that stuff. Send it all out there.
Is everybody ready? So you can find me on YouTube, which I upload twice a week or try to. It's just Josh Rundle. If you type in Josh Rundle Vlogs, that will come up too. Instagram is Josh Rundle. I want to say _ climbing. Now I can't remember.
It's underscore
Um,
climbing.
It is on. Thank you, buddy. Josh Rundle _ climbing. Twitter is also Josh Rundle _ climbing. No, sorry, it's not. It's Josh Rundle Vlogs. It's all very confusing. And Facebook is also Josh Rundle Vlogs. You can find me there too. Yeah, but
Awesome. Awesome, amazing. Well, this has been episode 11 of Homie and the Dude. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Anyone who stayed with us, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Hit the like button on the Facebook page. Follow the Facebook page. Hit the subscribe button on YouTube. Share this shit by word of mouth. Share this shit on your socials. All that kind of stuff, guys. You know it helps us out, gets us to the goals we want to hit. So let's keep pushing. Josh, thanks, dude. It's been a pleasure.
thanks, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, Josh. Thanks, guys.
All right, see you
We
later.
will see you soon.
Bye.